Hey everybody, it's Eri from Tokyo. This is your cryptocurrency update from Japan. I do have a fabulous video for you. I had Brian and Dino that came from Sentiment. They look at some of the online analytics and metrics for social and fundamentals with XRP. I took some clips out of that. It's just really interesting. Also, great news for XDC. I have some interesting news for XRP. And yeah, just kind of some of the things that are going on in the news. But first, I want to talk about the Hinman deposition in this video. I decided to separate it out because the Hinman deposition is 91 pages long. It's a monster to get through. And I think that if you don't have the time to get through it right away, and no doubt Attorney Jeremy Hogan is going to do a video that will really be a great summary. But I think I want to point out some of the nuggets. And I also want to tell you where to find it if you do have time. That would be go to the link on the @CryptoLawUS site. That is John Deaton's site where he updates this document library with these particular motions, and you can find the Hinman deposition there, a link to it, and it's very interesting. They went for 11 hours. So we don't have everything. There were some carefully selected parts that were put in and some were left out, but the vast majority of the Hinman deposition was included in this exhibit. Now, some people are thinking that this tweet that Jeremy Hogan put out where Hinman had said, "I'll be more helpful when I get back into the private practice, call me then." He didn't say that. Jeremy was just joking. He's got a great sense of humor and people just didn't follow his humor. There is nothing like that on page 96. So what you need to do is actually go to the document, and you can see he was trying to recollect what was said, and he said the words were, I think, I started with, "I'm very surprised to see that you are still offering XRP or on an unregistered basis. You're here to talk about how to come into compliance. You should stop doing that before we even think about anything else that we could do here." So, it's very interesting because, well, they started in the morning, obviously. They then took a break in the middle and then picked up in the afternoon. And a fair amount of it is maybe, I would say 20% is unreadable. Let me just see if I can show you what it looks like when they redact it. It is blacked out, the words. So it's not too much, but knowing that we didn't get everything and that there is about, I'd say 20% of this document is redacted. I still think, though, it's very, very telling that, well, Tinrero was objecting often, objection to form all the time. Where he really got pressed was when they were looking at the rules that the SEC has of whether or not they could hold assets themselves as employees. And they really pressed him when it came to, well, do you own even the stock from Ant Financial or Alibaba, for example? Because they did have a policy of owning Bitcoin and digital assets or securities that had to be pre-cleared. So they did have some blurry rules behind that. Hinman tried to get out of the questions often by calling the rulemaking very broad. And on page 65, line 5 and 6, I think the attorneys on the Ripple side got exactly what they were trying to get him to say. And when they talked about were the rules clear inside the SEC of whether you could own or not, he says, I don't think we had any specific rulemaking per se. So, it was exactly what they wanted him to say. So not only was it not clear for companies like Ripple, but it wasn't even that clear inside their policy for employees. And it goes on further to question Hinman exactly what was said to Ripple in the meetings. And he said that he was concerned if investors had all the information they needed, and he expressed concern about the lack of transparency that Ripple supposedly had, in his opinion. You know, when you look at the comparison of what Ripple does in their quarterly reports, really compared to the Ethereum Foundation, for example, there's just no comparison. At one point on page 80, Tenrejo gets very angry and he threatens to end the deposition. And he says, and you can call the judge. This was at a key point where Mr. Solomon, the attorney on the Ripple side, was clarifying that there was no preliminary injunction relief sought in relation to sales of XRP at the time the suit was filed. That is so important. So they had not given any determination at the time the suit was filed. And the meeting that they had after Hinman's speech, remember the Hinman speech where he said that Ethereum and Bitcoin are not a security as it was deemed by, oh, of course, he said in the beginning, this is my opinion, but then went on to make tons and tons of statements where he used we when talking about the SEC. And after the meeting, it was, never said that XRP was a security. So this is and there's one more big bombshell, and it's my opinion, and we'll see when Jeremy does the video on the recap if he feels the same. This was from a memo that was in a meeting that took place in August after the Hinman speech. Chairman Clayton encouraged the Ripple executives to continue ongoing discussions with the staff of Division of Corporate Finance. So it was like, just keep up your communication. And Clayton never gave a statement that XRP sales were sales of securities, and nor did Hinman, for that matter. He just said that you better stop selling so we can get into compliance. So 11 hours, some 20 documents that he looked at. It's very, very interesting. So I want to replay for you something that Jungle Inc. put out there today. This is exactly what I mean when Hinman was using the we when talking about what was a security and what wasn't. Here we go.
And so we kind of tried to get that out there. We also, last summer, spoke a little bit more about how we were looking at some of the more decentralized and seasoned digital assets like Bitcoin and Ether on the Ethereum network. And we made it very clear that at this point we don't see a reason to regulate those as securities or transactions in those instruments as securities at this point. I know we're going to get into more detail on this, but that was another part of our exercise in terms of making it clearer to the market how we look at the
do you hear that? He says we 5 times, and he says our once. So 6 times each of those is referring to the SEC. It's just unbelievable. So I had sent this message off to Gary Gensler that he needs to clean this mess, please, because the world is watching. I think the comments were so interesting. Yeah, so interesting how everybody is feeling. And now let me just tell you what is happening with this lack of clarity. I want you to listen to this Jacob Zag. I'm not going to be able to say it. Zeski. I know. I'm sorry, Jacob. I totally blew that. He is from Kraken. That is an exchange. Listen to what he says. Listen to where he says the innovation is happening. And unfortunately, we've got a small window for the United States to really regulate correctly and quickly, or they're going to forever be chasing the lead. Forever, they will be chasing. And so I think don't let these tweets go to waste. Tag your senator, your representatives, your regulators, and all those who you are realizing are holding back innovation. All right, have a listen to this. It's interesting.
Having said that, the speed at which Asia is catching up is definitely increasing, and we already see that, or it's my personal bet, that within an industry that is growing probably the fastest and is the most fascinating industry right now, especially for someone who is a big fan of fintech. And Asia Pacific is growing the fastest when it comes to region of adoption of fintech, adoption of new technology. Everyone basically here in developing countries is having a mobile phone and spending majority of their time on mobile. It's just a massive opportunity, not only for companies like Kraken, but also for any other tech company out there, because it's definitely it's still early when it comes to adoption of many business models over here. So for me, I think what I'm most excited about is that crypto is definitely going to be the fastest growing industry worldwide. And I believe Asia Pacific is going to be one of the fastest growing regions.
So crypto is going to be the fastest sector in terms of growth, and yes, the Asia Pacific region is really grabbing it. Okay, we are jumping to a little quick fluff. Look at this. This is a new bus that goes from Tokyo to Kyoto or Kyoto to Tokyo. Usually if you take the bullet train, of course, it's luxurious, but it's expensive. You're going to, well, depending on season and depending on what class, because you can take different class, it's going to be at least a $400 ticket round trip, at least. And so you want to be able to go in one of these buses. I think it's an overnight bus, which is fine. Looks more comfortable than an airplane, right? You have these 3 seats across and a folding table that comes down. There are charge outlets, there's drink holders, there's a footrest, and the big kicker, look at this. I want to tell you what the price is. How comfortable does that look? And private, right? Look, you even have like this little bedside style light. So the price, 63 US dollars. That is a bargain. All right, everybody, do take care. Sayonara for now. Bye-bye.